Well, for a moment, I'd like to ask, how many of you have ever gone out for a group lunch? Everybody's going out for a group lunch. So this is a group lunch. You're going out for the group lunch, and in a moment of complete stupidity, you say, I'm going to take care of the bill. Everyone kick in their fair share. You ever done that? Everyone kick in their fair share. You collect all the money that people have given. They, of course, leave. And you go to the cashier to pay the bill. It's a $100 bill. You're going to leave a $20 tip. So it's $120 you got to come up with. You count the money that people have kicked into you, and you come up with $85. Then you remember, oh, wait a minute, I had lunch too, so I need to kick in my fair share. So you order the $5 sandwich. So you have $85 from them, the $5 sandwich, that means $90, it's a $120 bill, and you're out how much money? $30. You just had lunch with a bunch of Zacchaeus, and 4 Zacchaeus met Jesus. You're out. You go out to lunch a different time, but this is Zacchaeus, these are Zacchaeus after they met Jesus. You collect all the money, you get to the cashier, and you have how much money? You got $130, maybe you got $120. They paid either one. That's the effect of Jesus on Zacchaeus. And it's the effect of Jesus on all of us. So I'm going to talk about money today, and I also want to be completely transparent with the congregation. Completely open about this. Someone mentioned to me we don't talk about this enough. So I just want to bring it up. So I hope this doesn't upset folks, but I just want to be as straightforward as I can. We have a budget that we're going to put together next year. It's going to be in the basis of the contributions that folks in the church make, and then where are we going to get the rest of the money? Savings. We're going to get it out of savings. Right. We're going to make up the difference out of savings. And I think it's my guess that we have probably 5 years worth of savings that we can depend on. If the furnace goes, if the roof has to be replaced, maybe 4 years of savings. It's dicey. But there's a limit as to how much money is in the bank. So what happens after 5 years or 6 years? What happens then? Well, the church won't close. So I've mentioned to folks that I'm willing to stay here, but at least now, as long as I'm alive and in decent mommy, that my wife lets me, I'm willing to stay on after 5 years, and I'll gladly accept whatever the church can provide. So that's fine with me. So the church will continue as long as you want to put up with me. If you don't want to put up with me, you want to find somebody else out, I don't know what happens then. But the church will continue on. So that's what folks should understand. The church isn't going to close. The church will continue on. That's the way our church is. So that prompted me to think, okay, why do I want to contribute to this congregation? And I'll tell you why. We want to contribute to this congregation because of Ron Solberg. I've come to church on Sunday morning and I see Ron Solberg going around the outside of the building clipping all the flowers so that they look nice. And that to me says that Ron Solberg is filled with passion. And I want to support a community that fosters that kind of passion. We want to contribute to this church because of the funkiest member of the congregation. Now, who do you think the funkiest member of the congregation is? If anybody doesn't know, we're really going to be in trouble. Who is the funkiest member of the congregation?
Phoebe!
It's Laura, right. For the most part, we're a bunch of old folk. But we're old folk that embraces Laura, who just brings this spirit to us that is so marvelous And Laura also is obviously engaged by what we do here. And we want to support a community that has arms that are that long. We want to support the community because of John and Carolyn Seegers. They told me that they were at a big church in Colorado. Probably how much bigger than this one? 40 or 50 times bigger than this congregation at the minimum. And they also say they didn't know whether they were going to be involved with church when they came east. And that's understandable. I know a lot of people that move, and that's what happens. But they said to me, something draws them to this church. And it draws them week after week. Is that right? And that tells me something good is happening here. And I want to support a church where something good is happening and where people feel drawn to it. We want to support the church because of Joan Coolio. If you talk to Joan for a moment, you understand that she has this enormous passion for the Holton Home Ministry. Not only does she help lead that ministry, but she goes and gets people out of their rooms to bring them to the service. We want to support a community that fosters that kind of passion amongst its people. We want to support this church because of Mark and Jeff. First of all, how can you not love Mark and Jeff? But I saw that Mark signed up to be a worship assistant, which is kind of an increase in his commitment to the community. And I thought to myself, he obviously believes in this church, believes in what we stand for. And Jeff, I still don't know why he does this. He comes to choir practice before he goes to work. We want to support a community that brings that out of people. We want to support a community that has Sharon and Laura on church council, because Sharon and Laura are some of our younger people here, and they represent the future of this congregation. And when younger people are stepping forward to help lead the church, that is a good sign. We want to support that. We want to support this church because of Sue Carl. I came to church in June, July, and August every Sunday morning, and Sue Carl is here opening up the place, always with a smile, always with a certain lightness of being about her. And never once did she complain. Somebody else ought to be doing this too. Never did she complain. We want to support a community which has that kind of spirit in it. We want to support a community that draws Roy Krause to us. Roy Krause came up to me a number of months ago and he said, I'm not going to make it to church today because I've got to go to my driver's training program. I thought to myself, there is a man that clearly gets something out of worship that comes here each Sunday, and he can't come here. He feels a sense of accountability and responsibility to let people know. I want to support that kind of community. We want to support this community because of Peter and Annie. First of all, Annie always brings joy to everybody. That's right. She just can't help it. And I want to support this church because it has Peter Bowman in it. I'll tell you why. Peter Bowman captures for me a very unique and something I don't see very often. He has the humility to recognize his limitations.
And he's also mine.
And he's yours. Peter recognized that he could not take care of Annie at home. He recognized his limitations. That is a wonderful spiritual quality. So he is to provide a place for Annie to be taken care of, and he is taking care of himself. Of course, if you have a heart attack, that would help the cause a little bit, but he is taking care. I want to support a community which fosters that kind of attitude. I want to support a community that has the twins. Does anyone know who the twins are? I might have just created a nickname for them. The twins. Anyone know who the twins are? The Diane and Lynn. Every morning on Sunday, Diane and Lynn are here to set up the altar. They're goofing with each other. They're smiling. They're happy. They goof around with me. And never once have I heard them grouse. Somebody else ought to be doing that for a change. No. They serve with joy in their hearts. I wanted to support a church. Marcia wants to support a church because of Chris and Jean. Jean has trouble sleeping, so it's hard for him to get here early in the morning, but whenever we ask him to play the guitar, Jean makes it. He does the best he can. And what very few people probably realize is that Chris Cook, who has every reason to be angry with me, but she doesn't. She's graceful, unless she's requesting it. She's wicked graceful to me. She sets up the banners here on Sunday morning. That she can be angry because she can say, John, why don't you tell me what the theme is in advance? She doesn't do that. Don't give her any idea. She doesn't do that. She does her service quietly. And we want to support this church because of Ingrid. When I found out when Ingrid first came here, she told me she was a pastor from a pastor, and I gulped, because pastors are wicked critical, wicked judgmental, and I thought, what am I in for with Ingrid in the congregation listening to our, participating in our service? But Ingrid not only comes here every week, not only sings in the choir, but after the service she goes to the Methodist church where her husband is the pastor. And I thought to myself, good Lord, she goes to church twice on Sunday. There has to be something to it now to draw Ingrid like that. And I want to support that. And we want to support a church that brings Gary Wells here on Sunday. He doesn't come to Brattleboro very often. What strikes me is that when he does come to Brattleboro, he shows up. There has to be something good going on. Great Gary to show up. And we want to support a church that gets packed, come across the street to be with us on Sunday morning. Because that says something as well about something good happening here. We also want to support a church that has Hayden and Michaela. When I visited that, Michaela said, I'm not going to be able to make it to church on Sunday because I have to work. Now, a lot of young people would say, I'm so glad I got a job Sunday morning so I didn't have to go to church. That is not her perspective. She had a very different perspective on that. And Hayden gets himself here oftentimes by himself. He walks to church to light the candles. And it's obvious Michaela gets a lot out of reading the scripture for us when she's here. When the church can draw young people like that, that is something we want to be a part of. And finally, we want to support this church because of the Ever Ready Bunny. Have you ever seen the Ever Ready ad on TV? And the bunny just keeps going and keeps going and keeps going. Does anyone have an idea of who the Ever Ready Bunny is? Who is that? It's Debbie Schulin, who cleans here, who pays the bills here. I shouldn't do this, I'm going to forget something she does. She does the e-news for us. She does the website for us. And she always is smiling about it and never complains. We want to support that kind of passion. And finally, we want to support this church because of the one person in the congregation who struck me as having the best sense of humor. She walked into a meeting and she said, hello, I'm the aged elder. That's Nancy Wall. And I thought to myself, when someone can laugh at themselves and poke fun at themselves, that's a sign of really good spirituality. Laugh at ourselves. I don't know why you would support the church. That is an individual decision that each one of us makes. But I know the most important thing that you can give to this church is what you're already giving, which is the spirit you bring. That's what makes us who we are. And the spirit that you bring is marvelous. And I've just illustrated, if you go to Paul's readings, how the body of Christ here functions, and the spirit that is within us. So I hope you'll do the best you can when it comes to the pledges for next year. But the most important thing you bring is that spirit. I'm going to leave you with a story. There was a robber who was in the woods and he saw a hut. So he burst through the door of the hut. And there was an old man sitting at the table. And he looked around the hut and he saw there wasn't very much in the hut. And he said, old man, I'm a robber. The old man said, I don't have anything to give you. And then he said, wait a minute. So he went to the drawer and took out a bag. He reached in the bag and he took out a gemstone. He said, here, and gave it to the robber. The robber took the gemstone and fled. Then the next day, the old man was sitting at the table again, and someone knocked on the door. He went to the door, opened the door, and there was the robber come back. And the old man said, I gave you everything I had yesterday. The robber said, I know, here's your gemstone. I'm giving it back to you. The old man said to himself, why is he giving this back to me? The robber said, I don't want the gemstone. I want the spirit in you that allowed you to give it to me so easily. That's the spirit that exists in our midst. And that's the spirit we want to continue to foster. And that really is a blessing from God when we have that kind of spirit. We give to Holcomb Home. We give to the food pantry. We give to one another. This week, a bunch of us went to Winter Garvey's house to have a worship service with him. That is the spirit that defines us. It's the spirit of Christ that is already in our midst. Thank you for your attention. In Jesus' name.
Amen.